We all like to use the same old excuses when we're not doing well in online multiplayer games. He's gotta be hacking, I shot it first, that weapon's OP, me brother must be hogging all the internet, you know, the usual BS. Sometimes though, your repeated deaths in matches aren't only because you suck. That's because making these intricately designed multiplayer modes that are balanced enough to make sure every weapon or tactic is viable isn't easy, and more often than not, the developers have to play a game of trial and error. However, that often means shipping a game or updating one already released and accidentally introducing a gun or item that completely breaks the meta and your spirits in the process. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 9 overpowered weapons that ruined multiplayer games. Number 9, the DL-44, Star Wars Battlefront. To say there's no skill involved in doing well in Star Wars Battlefront isn't totally true, but EA's first attempt at reviving that iconic license doesn't have a lot of depth or tactical options. Despite coming from the same developer, this was no Battlefield, and the shooter aimed to attract a more casual younger audience who could jump into a relatively level playing field. However, this focus apparently meant that the considerations of weapon balance were also thrown out the window, as only one gun really mattered in the game, Han Solo's iconic blaster, otherwise known as the DL-44 pistol. This thing absolutely decimated at closer ranges, only needing a couple of shots to put another player down. Even worse, the feeling of unfairness was compounded at launch, because while the pistol was the last weapon you'd unlock in the regular progression system, a lot of players had access to it straight away simply by pre-ordering or purchasing one of the deluxe editions. The stink of pay to win was everywhere, and for those few weeks around launch, spawning and being killed by this gun that you probably didn't have access to failed to endear many to this already divisive shooter. Number 8, the USAS-12 FRAG Battlefield 3. Battlefield is no stranger to broken weapons, but the strange thing is they often seem to be shotguns. The Bad Company series had a few infamous sniper shotties, but it's the USAS-12 from Battlefield 3 that really takes the cake, and the piss cake. The base version of this gun was already pretty powerful, but if you threw the frag rounds attachment on it, then it became unstoppable during its prime. With a stupidly high rate of fire and even higher range and damage, you could cannon your way through a whole squad before you even had to stop to reload. Based on its explosive properties alone, the shotgun absolutely is one of the most devastating weapons on this list, but thankfully the devs were able to push out a patch relatively quickly, nerfing its abilities. Still, that hasn't stopped the gun from living on in infamy, haunting the minds of Battlefield players everywhere. Number 7, M6D Magnum Halo Combat Evolved. There are a few, let's call them legacy weapons that you simply cannot fail to mention when talking about overpowered video game guns. Most players already know about the likes of the Akimbo 1887s from Modern Warfare 2 or the AWP from Counter-Strike, so think of this entry as an acknowledgement of all of those nightmarish giants that we've talked about so many times before. However, when it comes to the most iconic of the overpowered icons, it has to be Halo Combat Evolved's pistol. For some, this might be the only thing they remember from that first game's multiplayer, having all of these fancy military and alien weapons at their disposal, and then getting utterly wrecked by the unassuming pistol. Pistol as a name kind of does it a disservice though. Hell, if this Deathbringer was called a hand cannon, it wouldn't do it justice. Weapon of mass destruction kind of comes close, but even then it's not quite on point. Put simply, the Magnum in this game had it all. Range, power, fire rate, you name it. Close or long range, all it would take was a handful of shots to eat through your shields and your pitiful remaining health. Number 6, the GRAU 5.56 Call of Duty Warzone. Like a lot of the franchises on this list, Call of Duty is no stranger to meta-breaking weapons. This whole list, in fact, could have been comprised of guns from that series, whether it's the already mentioned 1887s or World at War's MP40, so because of that I've tried to be as recent as possible and zeroed in on the weapon that's caused havoc in the Battle Royale spin-off, Warzone. Now, Warzone is an awesome title, in fact it's the most fun I've ever had with a Battle Royale game, but the new seasons have a habit of either introducing new weapons or buffing current ones in a way that creates these overpowered monstrosities. As a result, since its introduction in Season 2, the GRAU quickly became the weapon of choice thanks to its limited damage drop-off and laser-accurate precision. Once players had their loadout drop, you could bet they had their hands on one of these, mowing you down with automatic fire from well-guarded hiding spots while you had, like, a basic Uzi or something. It quickly drew the ire of fans, and thankfully received a bit of a nerf following Season 4, but it's still a top-tier gun. Thankfully though, it no longer results in the same level of rage quitting. Number 5, the FARSIGHT XR20 Perfect Dark. What's worse than a one-hit kill weapon in a multiplayer game? One that takes no skill to aim, one that doesn't take into account which part of the body you hit, one that can see other players through freaking walls. Well, how about one with all of these features rolled into it? The FARSIGHT railgun is one of the more popular examples on this list, but it shouldn't be forgotten as it makes every single design no-no in terms of making a balanced weapon. Just plonk yourself down in cover and snipe unsuspecting enemies until everyone else in the lobby quits and you win. Number 4, the Smart Pistol TITANFALL. You'll notice when it comes to overpowered weapons, the main offenders are usually pistols or shotguns. The same is true with TITANFALL, whose Smart Pistol became the bane of players' lives in the first game. This wasn't because of the usual defects though. It was no mismatch in damage output or fire rate that made this gun completely broken, it was actually an inbuilt feature that spiraled way out of control. That's because this wasn't just any other pistol, and the reason it had the SMART label was because it was imbued with an AI system that would lock onto targets and fire away without the need for a silly thing like aiming. The regular version of the weapon already had too few drawbacks, with it taking little skill to rack up kills with. However, it became even worse when players found ways to abuse the lock-on, making it instantaneous in some cases and giving other players no time to react or counter. It was taken out of the regular loadouts in Titanfall 2, and whisperings of it returning to Apex Legends always sends shivers down the spines of players. Number 3, the MIDAS SMG, The Division. The Division, in a lot of ways, was very much a first attempt and proof of concept that mixing MMO structures into a regular third-person shooter game could work, and as a result it had a whole bunch of teething problems at launch. While these mostly bordered on being funny, for instance the single-file queue players had to form to get past the first level, there was also unsurprisingly a game-breaking weapon in the mix as well. The legendary MIDAS SMG was a late-game pickup that high-level players quickly found they could abuse in the title's PvP Dark Zone areas. Though on the surface the game wasn't too powerful with a regular fire rate and damage output, it did have one ace up its sleeve in the form of an increased cooldown to abilities that came with every critical hit. This led to high-level players dominating, spamming their powerful special abilities on weaker players, and then mopping up with a gun that, even on its own terms, was still pretty damn reliable anyway. It was thankfully quickly nerfed, but not fast enough. Number 2, the Infinity Blade, FORTNITE. FORTNITE might not have a reputation for being a tactical battle royale game, not when the likes of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds exists, but that's not to say there's no depth at all. In both the weapon tiers and building mechanics, you need to invest time to get good at dominating each match, learning the intricacies of the systems. Of course, because it's an ever-evolving live service platform, content is often introduced that throws everything you thought you knew out the window, and nothing has done that more than the Infinity Blade. This revered melee weapon was a total piss take for the limited time it was in the game, as not only did it have effective stats in terms of damage, but getting this weapon, which admittedly wasn't the easiest task, would boost your capabilities across the board, massively increasing your shields and health while boosting your agility as well. The backlash was immediate, and Epic quickly removed the mythic weapon entirely. Number 1, the Oppressor Mark II GDA Online. Now, I can't pinpoint the exact moment the tide shifted, but seemingly overnight, GDA Online went from a multiplayer game where you could successfully grief players with a couple of purposefully obnoxious features to a pay-to-prey hellscape where opening your wallet enough could award you with ridiculous over-the-top weaponry that would pretty much make you invincible. Whether it was your own personal orbital cannon that could target anyone on the map without them knowing, to armoured vehicles that had little counters, there have been no short amount of overpowered and overused weapons that ruin any session they show up in, but even then, the Oppressor Mark II is something else. Living up to its name, this is essentially a futuristic rocket bike packed with more firepower than you can stuff into a Metal Gear. From lock-on missiles to countermeasures for anyone with the gall to fight back, this vehicle made you virtually invincible, and if someone did manage to destroy it, it would be on them to pay for the insurance just to add insult to injury. So that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Did any of these weapons make you want to rage quit? And are there any infuriating ones I missed off here? Either way, while you're down there, could you give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to WhatCulture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't know, I've been Josh. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.